productivity isn't the point. We spend so much time and effort trying to be more productive that sometimes what we don't realize is that we're being productive for productive sake. So in a way, we're just being busy. So we would see a lift in our mental health. We'd be able to have deeper, more meaningful relationships. We'd be able to experience more joy in the work that we do and in the time that we spend, because we'd be spending it more on the things that matter most and things that give us energy versus things that take our energy away or splinter our energy into lots of different directions. So we would just be happier and be more fulfilled if we would take back our focus. These times that we say we're going to do something and then we don't, that diminishes us in some ways, and it creates stress because we kind of internally, it affects us when we say, I'm going to do something and then we don't follow through. It affects our confidence and our ability to follow through with things on a consistent basis.
That's Penny Zenker, also known as the Focusologist. She's a sought-after speaker, best-selling author, podcast host, and former C-suite executive of a global top 5 research company. Her podcast, Take Back Time, ranks in the top 2% worldwide and helps people regain control of their focus and achieve peak performance. Penny specializes in helping leaders prioritize what's most important so they can achieve seemingly impossible goals, even in times of rapid change and growth. So you'll learn 1, how distractions lead to burnout, 2, the sneaky secret behind your zapped energy levels, and 3, why productivity shouldn't be the focus. And if you want to read these takeaways all the faster or just have a handy text-based review, I recommend you sign up for the gold nuggets at awesomeatyourjob.com. Our free email newsletter there provides actionable wisdom that you can read in just a couple minutes. I'm Pete Bukaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now here's Penny. Penny, welcome.
It's so good to be here. I'm excited.
I'm excited as well. I think you're the first Focusologist that we've had on the show.
I can guarantee it since I made it up.
It's like, yeah, the lawyers would have pursued them vigorously if anyone else came up. Well, that's a really cool title. Tell us, where does that come from?
Well, it comes from, it's as much for me as it is for everyone else. So firstly, it comes from reminding me that the practice of controlling and directing our focus towards more meaningful results is a daily practice, right? An ologist is someone who practices and goes deep into the practice. So it's for me and my health and well-being as well as for my success. But I realize we are in a focus crisis. So I really have it as well as a mission to help others to also make that a daily practice.
Okay, well, we're going to dig into some of these practices, absolutely, because focusing better is a key thing listeners have asked for. And yeah, there's a real need for that, certainly. Could you share with us, what is the state of this crisis you mentioned?
Well, I think most people would agree. I've done a lot of research of my own, but there's also a multitude of statistics out there. Like we tap, touch, swipe, and scroll on our phones 3,000 times a day.
Okay.
That's incredible. And people go to bed with their phones. They go to the bathroom with their phones. And what my research has shown me is I've done a lot of research to kind of give people a distraction profile. And the highest level is a time zombie. And I'm happy to share that link. It's a free quiz that people can take just to get some perspective. We're finding that people are just 2 rungs below a time zombie. If there's 6 different possible profiles, people are at the second and the third to the highest is what we're finding.
So you mean like that's the average or median level of attention destroyed?
Yeah, that most people define themselves after they go through this as squirrels, meaning that they're distracted by this, that, and everything, that they're having a really hard time staying attentive and focusing on what matters most. And it's not just our phones, right? It's also all of the fast pace of we've got to stay up with AI, and we've got so many different things going on, challenges in the workplace with toxicity or burnout, too much being given to us at any one time, or just the state of social affairs in the world.
And so, can you tell us then, what is the possibility, if we've truly mastered our focus, and what are we missing out on? If this is just sort of our normal, like this is water, this is air, this is just sort of what is, what's really possible for us in a world where we have gained true mastery of this?
Well, I think the first thing is not to accept this distraction as our new normal, is we have to take back control of the things that we actually can control. And that's what I'm on a mission to do for myself. But what's possible is this distraction is causing a lot of mental health issues. They're showing links to the level of distraction that we have with the level of anxiety, with the loneliness epidemic that they talk about, and other mental health issues. So we would see a lift in our mental health. We'd be able to have deeper, more meaningful relationships. We'd be able to experience more joy in the work that we do and in the time that we spend, because we'd be spending it more on the things that matter most and things that give us energy versus things that take our energy away or splinter our energy into lots of different directions. So we would just be happier and be more fulfilled if we would take back our focus.
Well, can you share with us, Penny, just how harmful is this distractedness, smartphone stuff? Is it a boogeyman? Is it like just sort of a minor point, or is it transformational?
Well, I think it's transformational. And I think it's also, if we look at a particular study that was done in 2018 from the Journal of Behavioral Science at that point in time, right? And that was a long time ago. They said that people who use their smartphones for more than 5 hours a day are twice as likely to experience symptoms of anxiety and depression compared to those who use it more frequently. And I can tell you that if we were to look at how many hours per day, if we looked up that study, we would see a very significant number of people using their phones more than 5 hours a day.
Okay. Yeah, this reminds me, I think there's a South Park episode about this where people think the answer is more smartphone, and it's exactly the opposite. It gets the job done. So that's a comedy show. But so we got some hard science there. And then tell us, what have you seen in terms of clients who have instituted some good practices and constraints around this stuff? What do they pull off in terms of being more awesome at their jobs?
Well, when they start to schedule themselves more effectively, well, let me put it this way first, is the first thing that I have people do, and this kind of ties into some of the things I have in my new book, The Reset Mindset, is I have them take reset moments, because stress is shown to compound. And so this stops stress from compounding, right? And stress can also come from distraction. So when people take these reset moments, they're able to reflect more clearly on what's working and what's not working. They're able to take time to schedule their day out so that their day is focused on the things that matter most. So when they're making time for these reset moments and including what they're going to do and how they're going to use their phones and when they're going to block out those distractions, they're finding not just within themselves that they're more productive. I have one CEO that I've worked with who said that he's easily 2 times more productive because he now has these blocks where he's not distracted, because he has these practices of what I call gatekeepers, that he puts away his phone and he directs and protects his time. And so therefore he's able to get so much more done and so much more of the right things because he's really more intentional about it. And not only that, but he says that his team is showing that they're much more effective. They're able to resolve problems quicker than they were in the past, and they're able to be more creative in the solutions that they come up with. And so he's really, really happy. Every time we meet, he says, I've had yet another month that's the best recorded month of revenue and profitability that we've ever experienced. So he's been really seeing that in the bottom line.
Fantastic. Okay. So that sounds handy and wise. I'm curious, as you put together your book, The Reset Mindset, and the revised edition here, any particularly surprising discoveries that made you go, wow, I didn't expect to find that?
I mean, I think that it's the surprises that I'm hearing are about how sticky. I didn't expect the language to be as sticky for people as it is and really simplify their access to it. So these words of reset moments is something that people are saying that now they've become sort of these professional noticers, and they're seeing these opportunities everywhere to take these reset moments, which I didn't expect it to be as sticky and as impactful in the way that it is on a day-to-day basis, and how people are putting it into practice, talking about it with each other, using it as a language within the organization. So those are some things that I didn't expect. And I think also what's interesting is I didn't expect this to be the book. I actually started writing a different book. And I started writing the book that was Living the 80-20 Rule. Because for me, that was one of the ways that we can block out those distractors and those things that are less important and focus on what really matters, is asking ourselves, what's the 20% that gives us 80% of the difference in every area? How do I approach this conversation so that I'm focused on the most important thing? I don't fight to be right. I remember that the most important thing is the relationship. So how can I interact with it, right? So how could we sort of implement this 80-20 rule in every area of our life? And as I started to dig in and write more about it, I realized that that's just one of many practices that help us to reset, to rethink, to redirect our focus and reprioritize, to recharge ourselves, to help us to let go of the things that are less important. And so it became, oh, that's a reset practice. So what does that enable us to do? What is the overarching thinking practice that happens, right? The way of thinking. And that's where this reset practice was born, in these reset moments. So that was a big surprise for me as well.
Yes. Well, I love the 80-20 rule so much. And we had Perry Marshall on the show once talking about it. And I have found that often in the case in my own work and initiatives. Like, sure enough, some things truly are 16 times as impactful as other things on a per hour basis of effort. So that's huge. So then your surprising discovery was that the reset moments are what enable folks to better deploy their energies into that vital few 20% of goodness. Is that right?
Yes, exactly. Well said. Well said. It also was an interesting discovery that reset moment can be as little as 60 seconds to reset our brain, that enables us to stop that compounding stress as well.
So, well, this is exciting, juicy stuff then. So let's kind of unpack the mechanism a little bit. So we have compounding stress, and that is diminishing us. Can you maybe paint a picture of how that unfolds in practice, perhaps over the course of a day?
Well, I think as much as I can go through an example, I think everybody can relate to that when they look at their own day. So you start your day, and the first diminishment happens when you hit the snooze button, because you thought you were going to get up and you had plans to go to the gym or to do something that was important, but you stayed up a little bit late and you feel tired. And so therefore you hit the snooze button. There's a small diminish that starts right there, because we let go of something that we set the night before that was important to us, that now we're procrastinating, or we're going to say, we're not going to go to the gym today. So it's all these times that we say we're going to do something and then we don't. That diminishes us in some ways, and it creates stress because we kind of internally, it affects us when we say, I'm going to do something, and then we don't follow through. It affects our confidence and our ability to follow through with things on a consistent basis. And then we get a call that the meeting that we were supposed to have tomorrow was moved up to today. And now we need to prepare for that meeting because we don't have that presentation prepared yet. Right? So now everything gets thrown to the wind about what you might have planned for the day. And so these stresses, they build up as things change. We are not as flexible or adaptable as we'd like to be. And so those stresses can come in a lot of different forms.
Well, so I get your point in terms of like the unexpected, like curveballs or disruptions, like sudden abrupt shifts of stuff are all forms of stressors, as is what you said is just not following through on our intentions creates a stress within us. And that's really an intriguing perspective, because in some ways it's like we feel stressed and in need of additional rest in that world of I woke up and I hit the snooze button because I want to rest more. You're suggesting that extra rest is not going to diminish our stress as much as being true to our prior intention will bust stress. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I mean, sleep is important. And if you feel like you're not getting enough sleep, then you should decide the night before that you're going to have a regular bedtime, for instance, and follow that so that you get enough sleep. But if you set an intention to do something, it's kind of like, how people, they set a New Year's resolution and the first couple of days they go to the gym and they feel good about it, but then they fall off and they don't end up going and they stop going. They feel bad about that. They feel bad that they set an intention and a goal and it affects people emotionally, even when you don't realize it. I think they call it cognitive dissonance when you're failing to follow through on your commitments. It can create that. It's sort of like this internal mental discomfort, right? That we experience. It can impact our self-esteem. These impacts are like, they might not make sense to you. You might say, well, why should that do that? It's just that we're emotional beings and it does, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, so then let's hear about this mechanism a bit more. So we've had a number of disruptions. Maybe we didn't follow through with an intention. Something got shifted around on us, some unexpected stuff, some disappointments, some bad news. Okay. So we've got a number of things. Stuff went down that is contributing to our stress and it's compounded over the course of a day. So then tell us, if that's the state, does that mean we are then less able to, 3 p.m., 4 p.m., able to tackle a bit of a vital few, 80-20, a big work as a result of having been zapped by this compounded stress? Can you expand upon that principle?
Yeah. I mean, think about also the decision fatigue. By the time you're at 4 p.m., you've had all these competing priorities and things that had to change and decisions that needed to be made. So it's kind of like by the time the afternoon gets around, if you've done nothing to address the stressors that have been around for the day, you had to work through lunch, right? All of these decisions that you made that weren't supporting you energy. It's like having a cup that's full of water, like a Dixie cup, but then you take it and you poke holes in it, right? You continue to poke holes in it with each time that you're experiencing some stress or a decision that needs to be made or can't follow through with something. All of these different things, they cause leaks in our energy, in our ability to forge forward and make good decisions. And so that's why we need to take these little resets, right? It might even be just a difficult discussion that took place. Maybe a customer called and was dissatisfied and how I dealt with that, but I might have felt a little bit attacked and taken that personally. It's those little moments when you can take those reset moments throughout the day that can make all the difference to revitalize you.
Okay, so then if I am not revitalized, unvitalized, what's the opposite of me? So if I'm drained, zapped from that stuff, and I said, okay, 3 or 4 p.m., that's the time I had scheduled to work on this super critical initiative. I even put it in my calendar, like Pete's guest said I'm supposed to, but I've got that stress buildup. When the moment comes to execute, I am less able to do so. Is what I'm gathering from what you've shared here.
Well, if you didn't push it off, because if it's not urgent, but it's the 20% because it's moving and creating impact, but maybe it's really not critical that you do it today. So you push it off and you push it off, right? And you get caught up in these false urgencies or just in this state of overwhelm. So the first thing that I would say is you always place the most important things first thing in the morning and do those 20% items first, and then everything else can follow. Then you know that you've done the thing that has the greatest impact and you've done that first. You don't wait until the end of the day because the likelihood is you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
You're smiling. Why are you smiling? Has that happened to you?
Well, I'm smiling because it's funny. You're catching me in a good groove because I've observed this same phenomenon, Penny. And so lately I've had a nice little streak of within seconds of being aware that I am awake. I tell my phone, I've got a shortcut. I say, Marky Mark. And then it launches the Hallow app and Mark Wahlberg is praying the rosary with me within seconds of wake up. Now, I'm not fully there with it yet, right? But it happens. And I like that it's happening with with perfect consistency. So I'm smiling because I am witnessing this principle in real time at the extreme. It's like in the first seconds of consciousness, I trigger this, and sure enough, it works with perfect consistency. And it's like you're gambling. The later something is scheduled in the day, the higher the probability of it oopsie accidentally somehow perhaps not happening, even with the greatest of intentions and the most motivated and pure. It's like, it's on my calendar. This is really important to me. I really mean it. This is for realsies, serious, no takesy backsies. And yet somehow it's like the forces of our environment and people in relationships can manage to shove that off of there. And it's, in a way, it's humbling in terms of our agency as humans. It's like, shouldn't I just be able to have the self-control or discipline to really hold firm to this 3 p.m. whatever appointment? And I'm learning kinda is the answer. It's like our capability here is somewhat limited unless we're just like brutal. Like, no, honey, I'm sorry that you feel sick and are vomiting everywhere and are in no condition to take care of the kids. But I have an appointment with myself at 3 p.m. to think of some big picture new product and services that I'm going to launch. So deal with it, right? Like, I guess I just can't do that. And maybe that's for the best as a human in the world with relationships that matter to me.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody is the same. If their significant other needs them, they're going to push it. But it's not even just for that we're pushing it. We're pushing it for everything else. So first, if you have a practice that you put into your calendar, space to think, you're already ahead of 90% of the people who don't plan that strategic thinking time. So right there, that's a reset moment to schedule in those moments to rethink and reconnect to what's most important. But if you do have the time, the best time to do it is in the morning. And there are some studies that also, and I don't have the specifics in front of me, but I remember that you're going to have fewer distractions in the morning because you're just getting up. But they talk about some new science around flow, the best time of flow, because of the hormones that are activated from sleep that is in the morning. So you have the best concentration. You haven't started to put holes in that cup. So your energy is full and you're able to give better quality concentration in the morning.
Okay. So these mindset resets, we've got a few of them are popping up already in terms of try to do it in the morning, really schedule it in, that time to think. And then lay out on us some additional ones. You said some can be done in just 1 minute to diffuse some of the effect of compounding stress that's showing up for us.
Yeah. So Thrive Global, for instance, is working with different types of companies to embed these reset moments into the workflow. For instance, Synchrony is a company that handles, credit cards. And so they work with their support team who typically, right, when somebody's picking up the phone and answering these support calls, right, are people calling to tell you how great you are? No. Right? They're calling to complain and say, this is happening and this is happening. So these people, you talked about how do we get drained? And right, they're constantly listening to people who are unhappy and they're taking it in. So this reset practice was brought into them and embedded into their workflow that in between each call, there's a 60-second app that's launched with a simple breathing exercise that's done that walks them through that and then will launch the next call. And so what they found through this is that the people who are the agents who are answering the phone, they're much calmer in the next call, right? Because they're not stacking those calls and that negativity. They're able to release it in that 60 seconds. So they're able to be more attentive. They're able to handle the calls much quicker. And they themselves are happier. They feel happier and do a better job, right, in bringing their best self. They're more creative in their solutions. And so that's the impact that it can have when you're taking these reset moments, whether it's to energize or whether it's to rethink things so that you're working on the right thing. It just helps you to do your best work and be happier. And who doesn't want that?
Oh, I love that. So 1 minute of breathing. Well, Penny, you're talking to a guy who pays for the breathwork app. So I'm going to ask you for the details. I imagine any number of slow, deep diaphragmatic breathing done for 1 minute will be great. But is there some magic prescription or formula you recommend for what goes down in that 1 minute of breathing?
No, I mean, their app is just a simple guided breathing app. So take a deep breath in, hold it, right? You could do the military uses the box breathing, which is 4 in, hold, 4 out, hold, right? So you could do something like that. You could do like, I forget what they call it, like through your one nostril at a time, breathing in and out. Any type of focus on your breathing in that way will be incredibly grounding. So I think if you're not doing it, to doing it, pick any one of the methods that are out there, find an app. I don't know, what do you use? Do you use Wim Hof or any of those types of breathing?
Well, I've played with a lot of them, and Wim Hof is fun, although that'll get you fired up. I mean, I don't know if you want to do that in between customer service calls. Maybe before battle.
Or holding your breath, right? That's one part of his method is to hold your breath or to breathe in and out very quickly. So through your nose, right? When we breathe out through our nose, right, it's activating the parasympathetic, which is helping us to calm the nervous system.
Certainly. So simple breathing. That's great. What else do you recommend for these resets?
Also in that 60 seconds, right, our senses are our fastest way to our nervous system. So it could also be just to get some essential oils and maybe have a lemon, for instance, or because that is energizing, or maybe lavender that is relaxing. And you can just take 60 seconds, taking a breath in of that sense, lighting a candle. Could also be something like taking a picture, and maybe it's your favorite place to go. Maybe you're a beach person, is taking 60 seconds to just imagine yourself sitting on the beach and relaxing for that moment, putting yourself somewhere else. So there's lots of little techniques that you can use. And that's, if you have more time, great. But you can also do this in 60 seconds. Take off your shoes and feel your feet grounded on the floor.
That's right. Or some decadent carpet.
Yeah, right. Feeling that fuzzy, nice carpet through your toes.
All right. So 60 seconds of sensory stuff, deep breathing. That's super. What are some other resets?
Well, some other resets are changing the types of questions that we ask, right? So if we get caught, a totally different type of reset, maybe we're caught in self-doubt or getting lost in sort of a negative story that we might be telling ourselves after maybe an interaction with somebody, or maybe we made a mistake, or we didn't get the result that we wanted. We didn't get the job that we wanted. And we have this loop of why me, or you're so stupid, or whatever we may tell ourselves in our stories that are hurting us more than helping us. We can also take a quick reset practice to change the question, is to say, okay, if I use, and I talk about in my book, a question that I used to ask, like when my father died in an accident, why me? Why him? And that just takes you down a terrible rabbit hole. And so I realized over time that I shifted that question, since why was getting me nowhere. I shifted it to, what does this mean? And what else could this mean? So that now I'm taking control of the meaning that I'm giving any interaction and choosing the best possible meaning for me to use, because that's going to influence everything. It's going to influence my attitude, my expectations, and my priorities, whatever meaning or perspective I choose to take. So just changing our questions. What else could this mean? How else could I approach this? Who else could I contact? Those types of things, they open up perspective. And like I said, it can just change and shift our mindset in the moment.
Absolutely. And it's a tricky path when you have charged up emotion, like in tragedy or extreme stress or difficulty, and then you add an unhelpful question onto that, and that can just start you down a trajectory into some places that are not so good for anybody. And so a few of those questions, certainly right from the get-go, can start pointing you under different pathways. So that's really, really solid. Okay, so we've got a number of these resets. Tell me, Penny, what are the other top practices we should utilize in order to focus truly on what matters most?
When you say top practices, what kind of context? Let's get it so that somebody can see where and how they can apply it.
Let's say someone is in their career, they want to advance and make a huge impact, and they want to get things fired up in a cool direction such that they are generating a lot of cool results. Folks are taking notice and their career is energized and off to the races.
Okay, awesome. Great context. So, well, the first thing that I like to do is, are they clear of how they want to advance so that they know the reset in itself is saying, okay, let me step back and make sure that I connect with the goal that I'm looking to achieve. And why do I have that goal? I want to rise to the C-suite of this organization. Okay, awesome. Why do you want that? Get clear on what's going to be different for you when you get there so that you're setting realistic expectations. And then you're also able to connect to the fuel because maybe you want to be there because you're going to be able to really impact a great number of people and improve the leadership in the company and take the company to new levels. And that company is supporting other individuals. So whatever gives you the juice and the leverage is going to be really helpful. And then when you're stepping back to get some perspective on, okay, well, who could help you to get there? Who are influencers in the organization that could speak for you when you're not in the room? You might also look at what's holding you back. So these are all, like, when I say ways of thinking about things, these are resets in the way that you're asking yourself those questions to challenge yourself to really rethink, right? A reset is to rethink. And maybe the approach that you're currently taking to get ahead isn't structured enough. Maybe you're not thinking of those people who could support you or what might be in your way. Have you had a discussion with your boss to find out what might be helpful? Like, what do they see as the next steps for you in getting to that next position? Right? So there's conversations that can be had. There's alliances that can be made, and seeing if there's any limiting belief that you have about getting there. Do you see yourself as someone in that role? You could even visualize yourself as in that role. And when you do that and visualize yourself, you might ask yourself in that moment when you see yourself 4 years, 5 years, 3 years down the road in that position, and just like really feel yourself in there, sitting in your office, having a conversation, and then ask yourself, what were the 3 things that made it even easier to get there? So we have a lot of internal wisdom that we often don't tap into, especially if we feel stressed or pressured, then we're less intentional. And so if we can really set up those things ahead of time, then we can be more intentional about how we go about getting to the next level. So one of the things that I also often talk about that is a lesson that I've learned over time is that productivity isn't the point. We spend so much time and effort trying to be more productive that sometimes what we don't realize is that we're being productive for productive sake. So in a way, we're just being busy. I liken the quote from Confucius that a person who chases 2 rabbits catches none.
Mm-hmm.
And I changed that quote because I think inherently it may give us the wrong message, because when we chase the rabbits and we get better at chasing the rabbits, we're actually not accomplishing the goal, which is what?
Catching?
To catch the rabbit, right?
Yeah.
We can get better at the chase, but it doesn't make us any more likely to catch 1 rabbit, let alone 2. So if we want to catch the rabbits, then we need to change that quote a little bit and say a person who chases rabbits catches none.
Oh, yeah. I'm hearing like the emphasis. A person who chases rabbits catches none.
Not a person who chases 2 rabbits catches none, but a person who chases rabbits.
Mm-hmm.
So the point isn't what you might think, which is to chase only 1 rabbit and not 2. And that way you're more likely to catch it because you're focused on 1 rabbit. But actually, don't chase at all, because that's not the point. The point is to catch the rabbits. So build a trap. But the point is that very often in work, this is what we do, is we get so focused on the task that we miss the entire point. If we're more adaptable in recognizing and really connecting to what it is we're looking to achieve, then we may find that spending more time doing that task is not productive, and that maybe we need to revamp the whole process. We have to be thinking about what we're doing and how it connects to the big picture instead of just focused on the tasks.
But yeah, it is easy to get caught up in it because it's sort of fun. It's like, oh man, I am running way faster than I used to chasing these rabbits. Like, whoo, yeah, that one evaded me by much less distance and time than before. And it can be kind of seductive. Like I am cranking through more and more and more outputs over the course of a day. Go me. I am such a winner. I feel productive.
Yeah.
And yet we may not actually be accomplishing the results that we're after, but rather just getting seduced by the thrill of the chasing instead of just maybe what sometimes is very simple, easy, boring catching.
And look at it from also what we measure, right? So we're measuring that we get more productive in this chase. We talked earlier about call centers and help desks and things like that. So if we take a call center and they're tracking and measuring the amount of time that it takes to go through a call, then that's what people are going to be focused on. And they're going to be so focused on making sure that that call is as short as possible. That's going to be their focus. And they're going to improve that and improve that. But they're not really getting to the root cause of the problem. And maybe that same problem comes up 100 times. That if they just solved it at its root the first time and fixed it like that, then they wouldn't have 100 more calls, right? So we have to be thinking about also what we're setting as measures for people so that we're driving the right focus as well.
Yeah. From a broader holistic perspective, your goal is advance a prospect as far as you can whenever you have the opportunity is the main thing you're after, as opposed to handle those calls fast. All right. Thank you. Well, Penny, tell me any other critical things we should know before hearing about some of your favorite things.
So the critical thing that I think is important for people to know is that this concept is incredibly simple, but also incredibly effective. We talked about the 80-20 rule before and its compounding impact, and also the ability for reset moments to reduce stress from compounding. But at the same time, it has a positive compounding effect of us getting to our goals faster and more effectively. The more that we get perspective and focus on the right things, focus on that 20%, we're leveraging off of that 80-20 rule and compounding each time we choose and stay in that direction. So I think that's really important. And today, with how fast things are changing, that having what I call this reset mindset, it's built one reset moment at a time as it compounds. It makes us ready for change or challenge or uncertainty. It changes our relationship with how we approach the uncertainty that we might face in the future or the changes or the challenges. So it's that we just need to be more comfortable and happy to engage and embrace change as a catalyst and not a constraint.
Big thanks to Penny for sharing her wisdom with us, and big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. Okay, cool. Well, now could you share with us a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
I recently came across this quote from Richard Branson, because as I'm looking for different types of resets and successful people who embody this reset mindset, I love his quote that I recently came across, which is that every success story is a tale of constant adaptation, revision, and change.
And how about a favorite book?
Well, I think one of the ones that really influenced my way of thinking is The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
Okay. And a favorite tool, something you use to be awesome at your job?
One of the things that I love and I use every day is a tool called Text Expander.
Mm-hmm. Yes. They were our first sponsor, and I use them every day. Yeah.
I love Text Expander. So I use it all the time. So it's basically a way to have little templates and little snippets of text that I can just say #gig, and then a whole proposal will come up that I normally send out, or different types of links that I'm looking to get. If somebody wants my social posts, I just say #social and all my posts are there.
All right. And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to connect and resonate with readers and listeners? They quote it back to you often?
I think it's just in my make more reset moments. I hear people saying that back, or what other people have said that they say in the organization, like after I come in and do a talk, that they're encouraging each other to reset and make more reset moments.
All right. And if folks want to learn more, get in touch, where would you point them?
They can go to theresetmindset.net or pennykeynote.com. And of course, all the regular social channels, they can just look me up by name, Penny Zenker.
All right. And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
I think the final thing that I'd like to bring is one of the principles that I talk about in the Reset Mindset, and that's assume positive intent. Something my mom taught me when I was a teenager. And I would say that I think because relationships are one of the key things that makes us happy in our workplace, and it makes us better leaders. So I would say that really with every interaction, just assume positive intent and really look for the bigger picture of looking for what you're trying to serve.
All right. Penny, thank you. I wish you much fun and focus.
Thank you so much for having me, Pete.
I really love Penny's perspective about stress being cumulative. And if we take these short reset moments to bust that stress, things can be fantastic. And it's fun. I just recently got this amazing app for my phone. It's called Do. They're not a sponsor or anything, but maybe they should be. Do, D-U-E. And I am so hardcore about eliminating notifications from my phone. I actually wanted to find something to put them in. And Do is so cool because I can make it auto snooze and repeat again and again, and then show up as a critical alert to puncture my do not disturb shielded barriers that I've got going on inside my phone. So I am prompted just about every hour, with a couple exceptions, at 57 minutes after the hour to pause and breathe. And that is just so handy. I've got that going for me. It's a very subtle vibration and short beep. I have many options to choose from. And that's been handy to stop the cumulative accumulation of stress. We go, oh yeah, we're going to breathe here. And that's been super handy. I'm sure it's not the only game in town, but whatever system you can use to have regular prompts to ensure that the accumulation of stress is not left to run amok, but rather regularly interrupted and de-stressed. It's been super helpful. If you want to check out the show notes or the transcript or the links to items that we've referenced, please pay us a visit at awesomeatyourjob.com/EP995. I hope to catch you next time, and peace.